I switched it up on you, Carl. I made you
You
go.
got me. You got me.
I fucking gotcha. All right, welcome back. It's another NFL ski preview show. It's simulcast on Bear Ski Film, plus also the Thigh and Smy. I'm joined by my partner and co-host, the lovely Carl, from Thigh and Smy podcast. So we're being simulcast. Yeah, it's the dog days of the NFL season, Carl. We're wrapping it up. It's 4 games left. Now it's 2 games left, and eventually it's the Super Bowl. So we're going towards the end of the NFL season. I can't say that it's been a great one. It's been fun to watch and great NFL playoff football so far. But we're going through the divisional rounds, and yeah, it's fun to wrap up the season. So divisional playoff for the algorithm. I'm just gonna keep saying divisional playoff round. Um, yeah, watched every game. Carl, how'd you enjoy divisional playoff football?
I enjoyed it a lot. I think I watched 3 out of the 4 games in their entirety, and then the Commanders game. I did not watch that in its entirety, but that was the most shocking result. So, as far as the teams that are remaining and what we have looking forward to as far as potential Super Bowl matchups, Chiefs are there, not a surprise. Any other team, though, there's some twists that could be had that could really make this end of the season interesting. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's one of my most favorite playoff endings so far because I am pretty much okay with any of the teams winning. Um, Minus the Chiefs. I would say the Chiefs are number 4 on my list for other reasons, just more personal reasons of just not wanting them to win three-peat. But I respect greatness, and Paulie and I have always been consistent on respecting greatness. So I guess we could just kind of go through the divisional games, maybe talk about some coaching stuff because, as always, the coaching search is relevant and it is NFL news, but unfortunately or fortunately, it is revolving around our team. So um, I'd like to get started on a review of the divisional round of playoffs and then go from there.
Yeah, let's do that.
Not much other football news going on, obviously. Otherwise, um, excuse me, I'm a little stuffy. Ravens Bills was on the top of my dog. Well, I guess let's go through the way that the games were played. So Chiefs Texans ended up pretty much exactly how I expected it to. Um, Patrick Mahomes and Brittany Mahomes sacrificed a baby, and their black magic worked out as always. Their dark magic, I Satan is on their side. I don't understand.
Unbelievable.
I don't understand how the Chiefs keep getting away with this. Good for them. They're doing a great job, but there was some questionable calls. Patrick Mahomes is single-handedly going to reevaluate the rules and the rule commission team in the offseason because of the way he handles himself as a quarterback. Good for the Chiefs. The Texans played a pretty good game. I have optimistic forecasts on the Texans moving forward next week or next year, but I mean, the Chiefs did what they do, and if you make 1 or 2 mistakes against the Chiefs, they will win, and the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship as scheduled. So,
Yeah, there's a couple different things you just said regarding the potential reevaluation of the rules in regards to Patrick Mahomes. One went his way, one didn't, right? There was the hit to the head that wasn't a hit to the head whatsoever that extended the drive, gave him the 15 yards. But then there was the flip side of the coin where Mahomes, I believe, was starting to waltz his way out of bounds and slowed down and forced the defender to push him. And with the ever so slightly little gentlest of touches, I feel like people hit Ben Johnson on his back harder than today while he was at Hallis Halls for the first time, harder than what Mahomes received. He just flopped. So if we're looking to reevaluate anything, I think that things like that should start to be considered an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, because If that in combination with the fake slide, I know that we've talked about the fake slide in the past, right? If you can kind of eliminate the BS in that sense and just have them play football, I think that would really promote the game better, and it would give a better experience as opposed to having to quabble over Mahomes. Because at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is an icon, a legend. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame based on his record of, record up to this point anyway. But we don't want to have that tarnish kind of what's going on there. So definitely I'm all in favor of that. Regarding those Texans, I will have to give it to you. I think that they'll be okay moving forward. My only problem, I guess, with the Texans is that they're in such a weak division that maybe there's a little bit more smoke and mirrors than anything. They have a very good secondary. I'm very happy to break news that Derek Stingley Jr. was the better pick and is the better player when compared to Ahmed Sauce Gardner. So they'll be fine in that regard, but their linebacker situation, a little bit weird. Their interior defensive line maybe isn't as good as they'd hope, and then their offensive line is definitely an issue as well. Really eerily similar to what the Bears are kind of going through, in my opinion, but that hopefully will change moving forward. Hopefully the Bears will be the better team, but I'll digress there.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty perfectly. Patrick Mahomes' abuse of the rule at this point is, I think
abuse is the proper word.
I think that's my biggest issue with that game. I liked that game. I thought the Texans were closer. You saying that they don't necessarily belong just based on their division. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. It's kind of like this playoff has really taught me that as long as you get in, it's really all that matters.
If you have a competent quarterback. Now, you have to give credit where credit is due. The Texans made the playoffs after losing Stephon Diggs, their designated wide receiver 2, pretty early into the season, and then a player who I think has higher potential than Stephon Diggs, current Stephon Diggs, that is, Tank Dell. He was lost in the previous matchup in Kansas City. So if his knee doesn't give out, if Stephon Diggs doesn't tear his ACL, and they've got their full, I'm not thinking quartet, it'd be 5 players, right? Because in addition to those 2, you have the great Nico Collins, you have John Mechie, and then they've got a 5th receiver. I think it's Robert Woods, right? Like, they have a very deep wide receiver room. They're making do with what they have, but they just don't have the top end. So if you add the talent, maybe C.J. Stroud throws the ball a little bit better, but C.J. Stroud this year really regressed back to the mean, in my opinion. So I don't think that he's a world beater. I don't think that he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, Michigan bias aside, but he'll have to hope that he is and can elevate his team in the playoffs when it matters next year, because I'm sure they'll be back.
I also hate to break it to you, Carl, but Ohio State has won a national championship.
Well, that's a fraudulent win, Dave. I have to break that to you because Michigan did it in the traditional, correct sense. Now we've got the Mickey Mouse tournament where we have these iconic college football teams like Boise State and Indiana making it into the playoff. So
I just
fraudulent.
I'd let you know. I didn't know if you even saw what happened yesterday. I assumed you didn't watch it or.
Let's knock this one out of the park. So. My dad texted me while we were live yesterday and said Notre Dame off to a hot start. I think they had an 18-play drive that resulted in a touchdown. I let myself think while we were live yesterday, wow, Ohio State could lose. As soon as the streams end, 28-7, Ohio State is just absolutely dominating them. Ohio State's $50 million payroll. With like 15 seniors, maybe some super seniors in there. I don't know. But at the end of the day, that was the most expected result that the world had ever seen. But again, it was fraudulent. They won a Mickey Mouse tournament. So
anyway, Ohio State, national champs. So moving on. I don't know. CJ Stroud, like the Texans game just kind of. We say this about, like, what are the Chiefs missing realistically? It's Rashee Rice. That's about it. I think that's the end of the list in terms of what they're missing. Like,
I'll be a contrarian and say Tyreek Hill, but you're right.
Yeah, sure. Xavier Worthy was probably the MVP of the Chiefs during that game. So Tyreek Hill light. Kirkland Tyreek Hill was doing just fine.
I like that.
I don't know, man. Like the Texans, I don't want to discount them just because they did seem pretty good. And minus Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, I think they did a pretty damn good job of keeping up. Um, all those AI pictures of Patrick Mahomes making out with referees were not AI. I can
That's
confirm that.
correct. There
I
was
can
also a picture
confirm.
of someone in the Chiefs on their hands and knees in front of an NFL referee. That was also
Yeah,
not AI.
I can also confirm those are real, not AI.
NFL ski, where we break real news.
Yeah, breaking news. So the Texans, man, like good for them. It's definitely a bonus season. They got to lose to the Chiefs. I feel bad, but at the same time, some sort of voodoo magic is going on with the Chiefs. So I can't really critique. Um, I think the nation is waiting for the Chiefs to fall at this point, but good for them. On the other hand, with the Chiefs, I respect greatness. I'm rooting for a three-peat just in the sense of we've never seen it before. Um, it was impressive to see. Patrick Mahomes has looked worse and worse every year, and he doesn't impress me anymore. I mean, obviously he's an incredible quarterback, but it's not him winning these games. Travis Kelsey being saved for the playoffs is pretty exceptional. Other than that, that game was exactly what I expected it to be. So um, I fully expect the Texans to be in that divisional round next year. Minus anything else that you have to comment, Carl. I feel like that was the most paint by numbers type of game of the weekend. It was
Yeah,
it was the
it
Chiefs
it was
winning
the
by
expectation.
exactly how you expect them to win.
It was the least valuable game to watch. There was no shock factor. There was nothing fun about the football game, in my opinion. It was just the expectation. It is what it is.
Yeah, like you knew what was going to happen. There was going to be two or three calls that went the Chiefs' way because you just knew it was going to happen, and it happened. The Texans were undermanned, I would say. Like that's the best way to describe it. With Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell out, Joe Mixon did what he could. Nico Collins did what he could, but
And that's the last point I have about the Texans, right? How many rushing yards does Joe Mixon have after he unfortunately had to miss some time thanks to TJ Edwards doing the hip drop tackle on him on Sunday Night Football? He was over 1,000 yards, right? Like he had one hell of a season. I genuinely think that he was overperforming, and again, another player that will regress back to the mean, right? So, for me, it boils down to C.J. Stroud. Is C.J. Stroud a top 10 quarterback, a top 5 quarterback? Can you win games without these wide receivers because of C.J. Stroud? Last year, that's what happened, in my opinion. This year, they got better, quarterback got worse, and they're one and done. No, I'm sorry. They actually beat the Chargers. I got to give them credit there. So, I don't know. We'll have to see what that team does. It's really similar to the Bears. They need an offensive line. They need Trench's help. So we'll see what they do.
yeah, I don't know for sure about CJ Stroud. I do see the sophomore slump, and I do see some version of regression, but at the same time, I think he's probably pretty good. Top 10 is, I think, penciled in for him. I think maybe not top 10. Fine. Your face says it all. Top
Let's
15.
break
He's
some
top
news.
half.
If we're going to continue the show past the Super Bowl and outside of any draft content that we do, I love to do tier lists. So we can rank teams, we can rank
Oh, that'd be
quarterbacks,
fun.
things like that. We can definitely make that happen. So if you guys are in the chat listening right now, seems like a good time to say hello to everyone. Lot of people pouring in. Prometheus, Mr. Shorty, I think that's another AI chatbot. You guys might need to take care of that on your side.
And
Mr.
Ferris is
Mayhem,
here
oh
as
my God,
well.
this Bearski film guy, who is that? Antmis, Daniel Jeffries, Chad Speaker, what's going on? Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you have any suggestions as far as things you want to see regarding the show, definitely let us know. Again, I like tier lists. We can rank the quarterbacks, we can rank the running backs, whatever you guys want to do. So,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm super into tier lists, and I'm very excited for that. I think if we're talking S tier is the top, and there's like one or two guys there, I think CJ Stroud is obviously in the B tier, and it's
right,
probably
so
not
he'd be
even
B,
close.
he'd be in the B. Then there's A, then there's S, which is reserved essentially for Mahomes and
Josh Allen, I guess.
maybe Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much more there is to say about that Chiefs Texans game. I think it went the exact way we expected it to. The Chiefs were going to make it to the AFC Championship. Um, I have been on this horse for a while. I don't understand why so many AFC quarterbacks choose to stay in the AFC. Part of the problem. I think the best 8 quarterbacks in the NFL are all in the AFC.
So, like, the Bills got really lucky, right? They got Josh Allen at the back end of the first round, but like the Bengals acquired a great quarterback for being terrible. I guess the Ravens to the exact same thing as the Bills. They drafted him just at the end of the first round, I believe, Lamar Jackson. Um, I don't know. I don't think it's a choice thing. I think that you have really good top end teams in the AFC beating down on these bad teams in the AFC. The AFC then gets pushed up to the top of the draft. They get the better chance at the better quarterback. So
I get that, and there's times and periods and fluctuations where the NFC is an absolutely dominant conference, and the AFC ends up being not so much. But right now, it's kind of disheartening to just watch Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels in the NFC Championship while Lamar Jackson is sitting at home, Joe Burrow is sitting at home, it's CJ Stroud is sitting at home, Justin Herbert's sitting at home. Like it's unfortunate. It is what it is.
and those last two names got let into the dance, so that's their problem. But like Joe Burrow, prime example, got beat up
Yeah.
on in the division. The AFC as a whole, they had a hot streak. If it was the college football national championship of old, the playoff, the committee would definitely have let the Bengals in because of how hot they were. But that's not how it works in the NFL.
Well said. Cool fantasy, but Michigan will never win another national championship because the committee is not existent anymore. So, if Michigan has to earn it, they're never going to do it. But
Okay. Undefeated national champion, by the way. Undefeated.
Anyway, to the next game, Carl. We're
No, let's
moving on.
capstone
We're
that.
not
No,
talking
you
about
want to
Michigan.
poke the bear, okay? If you buy an Ohio
I
State,
wanna poke the bear.
if you
I'm
buy
the
an
bear
Ohio
poker now.
State national champion T-shirt, you have to have that 13-10 loss against Michigan on there. So, trump card, buddy.
I love that Carl says that I'm the bear poker now. Like,
Oh, I'm
the
just
ultimate-
giving. I'm just,
the
I'm
ultimate
just
bear
giving you
poker.
shit.
Yeah, I know. I want to hear your next game. I want to hear your opinion about this before I give you mine because I feel like I have it. I've been processing this game and this team for 12 weeks, and we have had similar thoughts. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders beat the Lions, and I feel like this one, the Texans and the Chiefs, it was a good game to talk about, but there's not many juicy plot lines. The Commanders Lions probably has 7 separate plot lines that are more interesting than Chiefs Texans all on its own. And I'd like to hear your general summary and then we can get into details. But I want you
Definitely.
to go first.
Holy smokes, Chiefs easy three-peat in the chat. How's it going, buddy? That's awesome. Okay, Lions, Redskins. The Mongoloid analysis would tell you that Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson were too busy with their Zoom interviews to be able to contribute to the Lions' success. That's fallacy. The fact of the matter here, when I look in the mirror regarding this, okay, because we've done all the predictions for the playoffs. Who did I pick in the first round? I picked the Bucks to beat the Redskins. Second round, I definitely picked the Lions to beat the Redskins. I'm pretty sure. So, perfect way to encapsulate and explain my thoughts on this. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Sorry, I just pulled a Dan Shorty. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm able to appreciate this quarterback a lot more now that we've acquired our head coach, right? But the fact of the matter is, Jaden Daniels is a really good quarterback. I'm not going to call him great just yet. He will be great if he makes it to the Super Bowl. But Jaden Daniels beat Ben Johnson and gave the Chicago Bears their brand new head coach. So I owe the world to Jaden Daniels. I used to be mad at him, but at the end of the day, Jaden Daniels' skill and anything that he does is irrelevant to Caleb Williams. And I don't have to have any anger towards Jaden Daniels anymore. I don't know why I did, if I'm being honest, but he's a good quarterback. And the good quarterback was able to take advantage of the 7 third stringers that Aaron Glenn had to trot out against them. That defense gave up a lot of points. The offense, the great Ben Johnson, who was able to prop up Jared Goff on stilts and break the damn ceiling right through that drywall. That quarterback got exposed. The NFL playoffs are where journeyman quarterbacks go to get exposed. And boy, oh boy, Jared Goff is never going to win a Super Bowl. If he couldn't do it this year, it simply will not happen.
I agree with you on your verdict on Jared Goff. So the thing I was saving in my back pocket is that I've been waiting for the Washington Commanders to run into a buzzsaw. And right now, I'm starting to think that they are the buzzsaw. And that was my big, like, clever idea and clever thought process that I wanted to present to you, is that I've just been waiting for Jaden Daniels and the Commanders to just run into the team that is going to just buzzsaw the shit out of them, because we have just seen so many of them. And I'm starting to think that Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are the buzzsaw. And watching Philly lose next week would not be shocking to me by any
Correct.
means. So they're just going to run into the Jaden Daniels buzzsaw. And I don't think Jaden Daniels is a 10-year Super Bowl winner. I don't think he's Patrick Mahomes. But there's a 75 percentile Patrick Mahomes and Jaden Daniels. There's a little bit of that going on right now, where he just, like, the game looks slow when he's playing, and he looks really fucking good, and he's making under talented players better. So it might be a Dan Quinn thing, it might be a perfect storm, and sometimes it's just, go ask the Giants. Like, sometimes it just takes a perfect storm of things to happen to beat the best teams in the NFL. So I'm done underrating the Commanders. And like you, we called him Little Jaden. We thought he was going to hit the wall, and we thought he was going to hit the buzzsaw. But right now, I'm starting to think that the Commanders are the buzzsaw. And that's where I'm at with that team.
I believe Kevin Durant, the great Kevin Durant, is a Redskins fan. And I definitely saw a picture of Kevin Durant with, I believe, Jaden Daniels, or at least, the very least, someone from the Redskins in the locker room afterwards. But it's very widely known that Kevin Durant smokes weed before he plays basketball professionally. I'm positive that Jaden Daniels does the same thing, because if he's getting blasted, getting destroyed, all 92 pounds of Jaden Daniels, he doesn't give a rat's ass. He's got this calm poise about him. No, gentlemen, he's high. So he's just a good quarterback, full stop. He doesn't give a shit because he's on cloud 9. And hell, I'm on cloud 9 too. Thank you, Jaden Daniels. The Bears have their head coach of the future because of Jaden Daniels. That is a fact. Thank you.
So that's kind of where I'm alluding to. So watching the, I'm sorry, my dogs are making very much noise. Watching Jaden Daniels kind of do what he's doing and against the Lions, part of me during that game wanted the Lions to overcome, and we can get into the details of it. I'm just going to go into the Washington of it all. Washington is just that team that it's too stupid and young and inexperienced to know any better that they don't belong here. And that's kind of what I'm watching with Washington this year. I just don't think that they know any better, that they don't belong with a team like Philly, with a team like Kansas City, with a team like Buffalo, which makes them very easily dangerous in the playoffs. I have no personal hatred towards Washington or Jaden Daniels or the fact that Dan Quinn was a finalist for our head coaching job and Cliff Kingsbury was a finalist towards our offensive coordinator, and that we could have had Jaden Daniels. None of it. I'm happy for him. I'm super okay with it. And if I had to pick a team in the NFC, Super Bowl ideally to me would be Washington Buffalo, because that way I'd be happy either way. But Washington wise, I don't know if there's much more to say. I don't think a rookie quarterback can win a Super Bowl, but if there is one that I have not
Brock
seen
Purdy
yet,
almost did it.
yeah. But if there's one that I haven't seen that a quarterback drags the team into the Super Bowl, I don't think we've ever seen anything closer than Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, if Jaden Daniels, God forbid, gets injured and it's Marcus Mariota's job to do that, there's just no chance, right? I don't know. I definitely wouldn't be happy if Jaden Daniels won the Super Bowl because then Bears fans would never be able to hear the end of it. But I hate the Eagles. I agree with you. I need Buffalo in there. I want Buffalo to win it. And that point that you made is very, very valid. The Bills, who have been knocking on the door, so to speak, cue up the Family Guy meme, they are experiencing a lot of pressure. John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, who has won multiple MVPs, he's going to end his career with more MVPs than Super Bowl victories. He is feeling the pressure, right? And these guys are just competing against each other. But the Redskins, no one expected them to be here. They've got brand new ownership, and I think that's the key to all of this, right? From top down, brand new ownership, reinvigorating guys like Dan Quinn, who's the Dallas Cowboys trader, giving second life to a failed head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, the second overall quarterback who no one thought was good enough to go first overall. It's a really cool story. I think after this year it flames out. They'll also regress back to the mean, one would assume. But right now, it's their Super Bowl to lose, believe it or not, in my opinion.
Don't disagree. And I think if you're Philly, you're shitting your pants a little bit right now just because of how the last game went. And there's some sort of like the same evil dark magic that's going on with Kansas City is the same shit that's going on with Washington.
Well, Jalen Hurts needs some dark magic for his knee because at the end of that game, he was forced to take every snap out of the shotgun and hand the ball off or, throw off of his one-step drop. Like, he's not going to be at 100%, and he wasn't good enough to win the game on his own to begin with. So can Saquon Barkley take over without snow? I don't know if it's going to be snowing in Philadelphia or not. Definitely they don't have a Hall of Fame center anymore to carry their offensive line. I feel like their offensive line has regressed from last year. Again, I think that the Redskins have as good of a chance to win on this Sunday as any other team playing.
I agree. On the Detroit side, and I think we're going to get into this a little bit more as we go through the AFC matchup with Buffalo and the Bills. But going into the Lions, I don't know what else you need to succeed in the NFL. Sure. Like this is what I was kind of saying or alluding to with the Redskins kind of being the buzzsaw, right? And yes, I was waiting for Washington to run into the buzzsaw, but maybe Washington is the buzzsaw that the Lions had to run into this year. But I don't see it becoming any easier for the Lions. And we'll get into the coaching search and all that stuff. Ben Johnson had a decent game. He had 500 yards of offense, 31 points. That defense was depleted. But Detroit, man, you're the first seed going in. I'm disappointed in Detroit. I feel bad for them to a certain extent. But at the same time, I don't know what more you need to set you up for success to get into the NFC Championship when the door is that wide open. Because there's no San Francisco in your way this year. There's no Philly at its prime in your way this year. You lost to Washington. So as Detroit and Detroit fans, sorry, this was the worst one so far in the last 2 to 3 years because you were the clear one seed. You were the clear most talented team in the NFL, and you got your ass kicked by Washington.
Well, here's the thing. I
don't know how to feel about Detroit.
They are going to be in a world of hurt going into next year. The Lions are going to be losing both of their coordinators, so they're going to be screwed. But it's a case of the NFC North beat up on each other because I feel strongly that after the Lions beat their rival to earn the number one seed at home, they mentally accepted that they had won the Super Bowl. And that was the moment that they lost against the Redskins 2 weeks in advance because they let their guard down and they just thought that they had it all. Again, we will not be seeing a situation like that in the NFC North moving forward. Week 18 next year, you will not have two teams in the NFC North, fighting each other to get the number one overall seed. So the answer to the question, though, what do you need if you're the Lions? You need a good quarterback. And like I said with Ben Johnson, he moved heaven, hell, earth, anything else you do or do not believe in. He got Jared Goff to crush his skull on the way of going through the ceiling of the drywall. He overperformed. Jared Goff at one point was the MVP frontrunner. I don't think that Jared Goff will ever have that in him ever again. And I know that the Lions are equally as talented as far as their personnel. They're really not going to lose anything too important as far as player personnel. But in my opinion, they lost the most important piece, which was Ben Johnson. And that defense, they're going to get healthier. Maybe they'll play at the exact same level. But Aaron Glenn, who potentially is going to become the head coach of the New York Jets here very soon, he is someone who is also, in my opinion, undervalued. He is a great coordinator. I would not disagree with you if you felt that Aaron Glenn was a better defensive coordinator than Ben Johnson was an offensive coordinator. And that's no slight towards Ben Johnson. I just think that Aaron Glenn is that good. So the brain drain has started. We're hearing reports for the Bears of people from the Lions that could be coming over to Chicago, name including, I believe, is it Chris Farley? I feel like there's an actor named Farley, last name, but the offensive line coordinator.
It's definitely not Chris Farley. Chris Farley's dead as fuck.
Yeah, I know. I pardon my ignorance. I swear to God, the guy's last name is Farley, though.
No, I get what you're saying. It's the offensive line coach that's being projected to be the offensive coordinator.
Right. So we'd have an Eric Washington situation on the offense. We'd have the offensive line coordinator become the
Hank Fraley.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, Chad. Thank you. So yeah, we'd have him be the offensive coordinator by name, not by trade, and he would be the pseudo line coordinator or offensive line coach.
Which would be an amazing upgrade. But yeah,
absolutely.
To the Lions. The Lions, to me, scream very much the NFC version of the Ravens, which is the next game we're going to get to. But I see a ceiling with them that has been peaked. And I never really believed in Dan Campbell long term. Maybe he's got more schematic stuff going on behind the scenes than I give him credit to. But I think this was the peak of the Detroit Lions. And whether any Detroit fans are watching right now or not, they can hate on us. But I think with what is happening to your team, I think that was your opportunity. And you got absolutely mauled by the Commanders, Redskins, whatever, to the point where it's going to separate your team. It's going to dissolve your team. And we're going to see what's going to happen and how well Dan Campbell can respond to his team and his coordinators being dismantled.
They're going to come out
with you.
They're going to come out hot next year. I think that Dan Campbell's going to get them fired up. The rah-rah. They're going to be able to bully you at the offensive line. They're going to have some good running plays. Maybe start 4-2, 5-1. But then what happens once you've got some tape on your quarterback, your bad quarterback, your new scheme, who's not going to be having a super mind behind that?
I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like this team is in an absolute free fall after this year, and I don't see how if Dan Campbell is that good of a head coach where he can put the reins back on in this like bucking Bronco, he deserves like top 5 coach label for the rest of his career. Because if you lose the Bears started out with Jared Goff, I disagree though. It's more of the Bears were hyped up from the previous season. The Bears were a team that was ready to go off. But right now, like the Lions are a team that's ready to descend. And it's going to be Jared Goff in meeting rooms with whoever his new offensive coordinator is. Could be Thomas Brown, for all I know.
Oh my God! I have not heard anyone say that. That would be hilarious.
I think that'd be a hilarious plot twist. But
yeah,
you could easily see like Thomas Brown being the offensive coordinator in Detroit, kind of teaching Jared Goff how to like not fuck shit up. I don't see, and it's Jared Goff being like, I'm not used to this level of coordination. And if the Lions start off hot next year, you got to give Dan Campbell like top 5 coach in the league credit at that point.
I just don't agree with you. I mean, I could literally see the Lions winning less than 8 games and starting 4-2 or 5-1. Like, I think that once you've got the script on them, they will got. Goof will get got, and they will just tumble at that point. But I think that they have too much talent to, come out slow and finish mediocre, whatever you want to say. But capstone what you said regarding Thomas Brown, right? Thomas Brown as the Lions offensive coordinator. What just happened today or yesterday with Chicago? Aaron Rodgers becomes your quarterback of the Vikings. That would be hilarious.
I would love that for the NFL, just in terms of
Yeah,
plot lines and
yeah.
storylines.
It'd be a movie.
Yeah. I have no more to say on the Lions and the Commanders game unless you do, but I'm ready to move on. So
No, let's go for it.
yeah. Rams Eagles and how that ended up. I can start with that one just because we trade off on the handoffs in terms of who starts with what. Rams Eagles. I predict the Rams to win. I don't think we were that far off in terms of the prediction. I think the Rams and the Eagles game was much closer than we thought it was going to be in terms of talent. I think the Eagles are immensely more talented than the Rams, but the Rams kind of pulled it off thanks to our Lord and Savior, Sean McVay. Sean McVay kind of almost pulled this one out of his ass single-handedly. Matt Stafford kind of just is an extension of Sean McVay. Hopefully one of them, if not both of them, are coming back next year. But the Rams are kind of just they are inevitable. They are going to compete every year as long as Sean McVay and Matt Stafford are there. Good for the Eagles and Saquon Barkley, but I feel like the Eagles are incredibly limited moving forward through the playoffs with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is obviously injured. He is Jalen Hurt right now, and I don't see them being a competitive team in the NFC as a representative in the Super Bowl, but good on them with Saquon Barkley to advance the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I mean, the strength of the Eagles team outside of Saquon Barkley's running ability is their secondary. So if they're able to kind of steal some possessions in that sense from Jaden Daniels, which is very unlikely because Jaden Daniels is, one read, run, never makes a turnover, makes a big mistake. If Saquon Barkley is given the opportunity to dominate the game and they can dominate the clock, it's very possible. I mean, the Redskins defense also gave up a lot of points to a really bad quarterback. Genuinely think that Jalen Hurts, while injured, is still better than Jared Goff. But I don't know, man. We already talked about what we feel about the Redskins, and that is what it is. The game against the Rams specifically, the Rams kind of turned it into like one of those classic football games. Every game is one score, but it didn't really feel as close as it was. I was genuinely surprised that they had a chance to take over and win the game at the end, but it never felt like that was going to be the reality. That would have been the most shocking result, in my opinion. I love Cliff Victoria. Jalen Carter is going to introduce himself to Daniels. If the Rams had Coleman Shelton at center to block little Jalen Carter, the murderer, maybe we're talking about a different ball game, Cliff. So
I fucking hate you guys. Coleman Shelton being the difference maker. I really like that was the NFC Championship game before the NFC Championship game, and I didn't really enjoy it. I felt like Saquon Barkley was the only difference maker in that game. The Rams are just kind of a nuisance in the NFC at this point, and that's part of the reason
that's the
where
perfect label for them and Sean McVay.
they're just the nuisance of the NFC where they just kind of get in the way and they'll fuck your day up. And that's part of the reason why I say the NFC is just wide open with a good quarterback. If Sean McVay gets you want to talk about Ben Johnson taking the job in Chicago due to a quarterback, Sean McVay, just give the guy a quarterback in the NFC and just let him represent the Super Bowl every year, please.
Well,
I
he's
respect
got one.
Sean McVay enough.
I hear your point. You need a healthy Matt Stafford, right? Like that's why I was always a big proponent of trading for a guy like McVay, as unrealistic as it was. Sean McVay plus Caleb Williams equals arthritis in your hand from all the Super Bowl rings. So
yeah, I agree. So I have very little to say moving forward about the Philly Rams game because I feel like it was just more of a it was more of a who was going to blink first type of game rather than who is the true champion of that game. Washington is the buzzsaw in my mind at this point moving forward, and whoever is going to run into them, let it so be it. So Philly at this point barely edged it out against the Rams, and sorry, yeah, Philly and Washington, the NFC Beast is kind of reigning supreme right now. So.
And I saw a graphic on that one of the games, whichever game it was. Essentially, the last 4 times that there has been a divisional matchup in the conference championship game, that team who had won that matchup had then won the Super Bowl. So again, we're talking about, and I don't know if I want to bust this out. Maybe if you're ready for this, okay. I saw the most just pontificating crackhead argument for what we think the Super Bowl matchup is going to be, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Washington Commanders are the Commanders. The commander and chief in the Super Bowl in a year where Donald Trump won the presidency. That's all I'll say. Just the most crackhead pontificating point you've ever heard. I apologize, but and not an original point, but
I didn't follow any of that. Anyway,
good. Well, let's move on.
Buffalo Ravens. I didn't follow any of that. I don't even get it.
You just don't want to get shot in the back of the head while you're sleeping tonight. I understand.
I would get shot in the ear, by the way.
I love
it. No, I just genuinely didn't follow any of that.
That's good. That's good.
Buffalo and the Ravens was probably, to me, the equivalent of Washington versus Detroit. I think that was the most interesting AFC matchup. Obviously, it's to many people the AFC Championship before the AFC Championship. I think regardless of who you like, Ravens had a decent chance against the Chiefs. Bills had a decent chance against the Chiefs as well. So whoever was left was probably going to be the favorite moving forward. I love what is happening for the Bills right now, and I'm happy for them. I'm much more interested in the storylines the same way I was interested in the storylines for the Lions. I'm much more interested in the storylines for the Ravens. I don't know what more you need to give Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to get him over the hump, because you could have said that last year was the most complete team for the Ravens. You could have said that this year was the most complete team for the Ravens. And every single time they just come up short. So go Bills. I am a huge Lamar Jackson fan, and I want him to represent a Super Bowl at one point. But I don't know what else you need to give Lamar Jackson to get over that hump at this point.
And I earned a lot of respect, or gained a lot of respect for Lamar Jackson, because it was very easy to point out that Mark Andrews is the reason they lost. He fumbled the football in a crucial situation, and then obviously dropped a very easy catch for a 2-point conversion, which, by the way, the Ravens had ran that 2-point conversion play when it matters like 4 years in a row. But Lamar Jackson said, well, if I didn't turn the ball over twice, maybe we'd have a better chance, right? He had that terrible pass that resulted in, I think, no points given up, but still was a bad turnover. And then he fumbled the ball, and Von Miller returned that for however many yards he returned that for. So I'm glad that Lamar Jackson was able to kind of point out that if he played better, maybe he'd be continuing to play this past, following weekend. But the fact of the matter is, you're totally right with Lamar Jackson. What else do you need? Wasn't necessarily a dominant, iconic Baltimore Ravens defense, yet it was still very good enough to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. Yes, Infarius, you're totally right. Zay Flowers not playing would have helped, but you've also got guys, Rashad Bateman, who also got tweaked in that game, but Rashad Bateman was their wide receiver 1 throughout these playoffs. He was a great wide receiver who was overperforming. You've got guys coming out of the woodwork like Anthony Miller catching meaningful passes. And then at the end of the day, Ravens have 2 top 10 tight ends. They have a top 5 offensive line. They've got the second best running back in the NFL. They've probably got 2 top 15 running backs in the NFL. No one talks about how good Justice Hill is. What else do you need, man? What's the excuse this time? He's just not good enough. Like I said, in my opinion, Lamar Jackson's career is going to end with him having more MVPs than Super Bowls, aka the modern day Peyton Manning.
Said it very well, man. Cliff Victoria saying like Lamar had a bad game at the wrong time. Lamar has bad games at every wrong time. It's getting old. It's not a narrative that you want to perpetuate at this point. It's not something that you want to keep talking about. It's not fun to talk about. I want Lamar to show up at Super Bowls and take over Patrick's place and all that. But the reason that Patrick Mahomes is still representing Super Bowls year after year after year is a very little minor difference between talent and clutchness, the clutch gene. And Lamar just does not have it. I feel bad for Lamar. I want Lamar to succeed. I like Lamar. But at this point, he has just demonstrated that he is not that dude in the playoffs. And I'm sorry. I want him to succeed, but there's just an abundance of evidence at this point. And if you can't do it with Derrick Henry and Mark Andrews, and I feel bad for Mark Andrews more than anybody else because that dude is a good player and he's probably going to get cut by that team this year. Just over that minor. I wouldn't be shocked, man.
We'll have to look into it, right? Yeah, if it's one or the other, you need to hold on to Isaiah Likely first. I just don't know if any of their contracts are expiring.
Yeah, I can look that up. If Isaiah Likely didn't exist, I would say Mark Andrews stays on that team. But it's just like a perfect storm of shit that happened for Lamar Jackson. So, good on the Buffalo Bills. Good on Josh Allen. In terms of the Super Bowl, it's the most open Super Bowl of all time because Philly's very imperfect, Washington's imperfect, Buffalo's imperfect, and Kansas City's imperfect. And at the end of the day, right now, we're talking about a bunch of teams that are going, to limp their way into the Super Bowl, and I'm okay with that because there's no favorites. There's minus Kansas City in the 1 seed. Detroit got knocked out. I'm okay with that. And unfortunately, Lamar was probably the best team and the best quarterback left, and he just fucked it up. So I think the narratives left in terms of the Ravens are few and far in between. So I don't know what you're going to do to the Ravens next year to improve them, to make them a more Super Bowl favorite and Super Bowl contending team. But I'm going to root for them next year like I've always done. So I don't know what to say.
You're going to root for the Ravens, I'm sorry?
I am. Because okay. I am a Lamar Jackson fan. I'm going to root for them. But I don't know what else I can say in terms of forgiving him and giving him benefit of the doubt because he has no benefit of doubt. I almost feel bad for the Ravens at this point because they are that team that has been stuck in the divisional round or the AFC Championship round, and they need something to get them over the top, and I don't know what it is. And I don't feel like John Harbaugh deserves to be fired and moved on from. I don't think Lamar is the problem. I don't know if the defense is the problem. I don't know if the skill positions are the problem. I just don't know what to do with that team because I want them to succeed, but I don't know if they have enough to succeed.
Exactly. If you want to throw Cliff Victoria's comment up just real quick, he states, how many teams would take Lamar Jackson over their current quarterbacks? A lot of them. That's fact. But that'd be a really good idea for a tier list. Specifically, what ranking quarterbacks that you'd start a team with. So you could flip side that argument and say how many quarterbacks or ranking quarterbacks on, how you'd want to win a Super Bowl tomorrow with. But Lamar Jackson, there might be a lot more quarterbacks that you'd rather have to start a team with than Lamar than you'd think. Not a lot, but more than you'd think.
At this point, like part of my issue is, again, the AFC, NFC thing. Put Lamar Jackson on the Falcons, and he's just representing the Super Bowl every year for the next 5 years.
Well, talk about where's the stink coming from the Falcons. I mean, that team is loaded up as far as draft capital on the offense, but they're not any better than what the Ravens are currently. I understand they'd be in a weaker argument, but
I can tell you where the stink is coming from the Falcons. It's coming from the Bears because they just keep recycling the garbage that's coming.
Hey, man, Eddie Goldman got that sack. He's not washed, bro. He deserves that contract. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Matt Eberflus is going to be an amazing defensive coordinator over there.
He's not going to be the defensive coordinator because they hired the interim head coach of the Jets. So the Falcons, where's the stink coming from? It might be Arthur Smith's diaper.
Oh, well,
Wait, hold on. Not Arthur Smith. Who's the owner?
no,
Dimitrov?
you nailed it. No. Arthur Smith is the Arthur blank.
Oh yeah. How can I? Because I know his name because the Migos rap about him. There's a bar they have on Arthur Smith, or sorry, Arthur Blank. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So we went through the divisional round. Moving forward to NFL news. Um. As much as we don't like to emphasize it right now, the only NFL coaching news that has happened, other than Mike Vrabel, is Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears.
That's cap. You can remove Cliff Victoria's comment if you'd like. There has been some shifting. So I alluded to Ian Rappaport's reporting earlier today that Mr. Aaron Glenn was in fact going to visit with the Jets with the goal of him not leaving the building. So no news has broke on that. I guess I'll refresh Twitter, but he is not the official head coach, but he is, in my opinion, the front runner, the very obvious choice. The Cowboys are expected to interview their own offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. Don't know where that's going to go or if it matters with those silly Dallas Cowboys. But the other monster piece of news that would have broke my heart if we didn't have Ben Johnson, Mr. Kevin O'Connell. Massive, massive blockbuster multi-year extension with the Minnesota Vikings. So there's been a little bit of movement, not as much as you'd think, but after the first domino with Vrabel, the biggest domino of them all, Ben Johnson fell. Now you're head coach of the Chicago Bears. And now we're going to see the trickle-down effect. I think the next head coach that's going to be hired, is Aaron Glenn. It's just a matter of where.
I would agree with you there. And then moving forward, Mike McCarthy probably ending up with the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints would be another one who would really potentially want Aaron Glenn. So if Mike McCarthy doesn't go to the Saints, do you feel like there's a chance that Mike McCarthy's unemployed next year as far as a head coaching position?
Very much so.
I agree.
I don't find that to be shocking or surprising at all. Again, just to kind of reiterate, like we're not trying to bears it up on an NFL show, but the Ben Johnson news to the Bears is kind of a big deal because of the way that the NFL works and the way that the Bears have traditionally worked. So the Bears signing a coach this early in the cycle for top tier money is a big deal. Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions kind of being dismantled is a big deal as well. The Jets probably hiring Aaron Glenn is also a signifier of Aaron Rodgers and the kind of uh, hierarchy of power that's going on with the
Now,
Jets.
is Aaron Rodgers under contract?
He is, yes, but I believe he would have to be released by the Jets to be moving on.
Yeah, he signed a 3-year, $12 million extension.
Yeah. So
he's under contract.
I think that's kind of like the coaching carousel catch up of our show.
Last thing, it's not a head coach, but Josh McDaniels is going to be your offensive coordinator with Mike Vrabel, I believe, in New England.
I believe that was confirmed, yeah.
By Ian Rappaport. So that's your opportunity cost. You gain a Ben Johnson at the cost of abusing the Rooney Rule any harder than the Bears could have possibly done to get Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels plus Caleb Williams equals no arthritis. That makes me very scared. So
I officially have never hated the Rooney Rule as much as I have this year, thanks to you, Carl. I've never had an issue with it personally, but this year it has been abused in a way that has made me disgusted by it to the point of where we just need to get rid of it altogether because we just need to have coaches of minority complexion be interviewed seriously rather than as tokens and then hire a white dude anyway. Like it's disgusting. It's disgusting to them more than it is to the Rooney Rule. Because there is a lot of good head coaches being interviewed. And at that point, Aaron Glenn needs to take the interview first with everybody so that people can understand what a good head coach looks like, regardless of color. But I digress.
I'm excited for Aaron Glenn. I think that he's going to end up being a very, very good head coach.
I do
So
too.
the Lions released a post saying that the Chicago Bears have hired Ben Johnson as their head coach, and the replies on there, some cordial, lot not. Still getting a lot of YouTube comments filtering in. Hey, it's the Kaluch. I know who that is. He says Jaden Daniels going to the first rookie, or is going to be the first rookie QB to take it all the way. Calling it here and now. Thank goodness he gave you Ben Johnson. Y'all about to pop off. That's facts, John. I said that the exact same thing essentially. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not picking against Jaden Daniels anymore, and I have nothing but thankfulness, if that's a word, for Jaden Daniels because he gave the Chicago Bears their new head coach. Love it.
I agree. There's not much more to say about the head coaching carousel. So just kind of moving on into the NFC and AFC championships. Commanders at the Eagles. Carl, any initial thoughts on Commanders versus Eagles in Philly, in Fentanyl, Philly?
Yeah, give me the Redskins, like we've said throughout the show. I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means. I could, depending on the weather and depending on Jalen Hurts' physical health, I do think that the game could be another showstopper, 45-41 or 38-31. I just see the Redskins coming on top either way. Like I said, Jaden Daniels would have to do something that he has not done up to this point in the season and make the big, crucial mistake multiple times, which the Eagles' secondary is capable of. Vic Fangio is very capable of. And then you'd have to have another 200-plus yard performance from Saquon Barkley and have that offensive line really impose their will and dominate. I'm not seeing it, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Commanders are. I don't even think it's that close. I think the Commanders dominate this game. I think it's going to be like 30-13 because I
No,
see the
there's
Commanders.
there's no shot. I feel like there's too much anger and aggression and hatred and the C word and fentanyl in those stands to allow the Eagles to just flop. So
I don't agree with you. I think that without Jalen Hurts at full capacity, which he has not been for the last 5 weeks, and definitely not going into this game, I don't see the Eagles talent, pure talent, being that much more powerful than whatever dark magic that the Commanders have gotten on their side. I think that the Commanders can easily score 30 points against Philly, and I think the Eagles will struggle to score 20 points against the Commanders. So I see like more of a 30-17 type game with the Commanders just absolutely dominating rather than Philly dominating on their offensive line and Saquon Barkley doing all the work all on his own.
let me see if I can articulate this. Because as far as asking the question, what do the Philadelphia Eagles need? They need their starting quarterback to be in a contract year. They need Jalen Hurts to play like he wants to be the highest paid quarterback after he loses a Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe. But as far as the struggle for me to articulate this, I've always thought in a roundabout way, maybe players shouldn't be paid for having poor performances, but they put their bodies on the line 365 days a year, essentially. They deserve the money at the end of the day. I don't really have a quibble with that. But how would it be if there was a public and really well defined and structured earning potential through playoff victories? Because if you're a good quarterback making $60 million a year and then you aren't winning playoff games, that should find a way to get subtracted out of your salary somehow. I don't know how to articulate this well. I'll have to do some in the tank thinking about this, but you'd want these quarterbacks who are supposedly the best in the NFL to get paid like it when it matters. That's by winning playoff games.
I think it's a very controversial topic you're starting here, but I don't hate any part of it because playoff incentive laced contracts should 100% be the issue. It's Jordan Love making $30 million a year. If he gets to the NFC Championship, he can make $50 million a year. But if he doesn't, he's a $30 million a year quarterback. I agree with you because of the structure of the NFL contracts right now, because of who are the top NFL quarterbacks in terms of pay rate. But that's an argument for another day. So, Bills Chiefs in the AFC Championship. I'm going to
Heart
let you
versus
open up
brain.
with that one.
Heart
So
versus brain. What do we want?
go
Flip the
for it.
coin. Heart or brain? I want the Bills to win desperately. Will the referees allow Kansas City to not go back to the Super Bowl? Again, with our crackpot working theory of Commander in Chief in the Donald Trump new era. The Bills have everything in front of them. I mean, I don't necessarily know what the strength of the Kansas City defense is. They kind of are like a well organized and like downright good version of Brian Flores' defense. They're able to get a lot of pressure when it matters. Spagnuolo's a mastermind in that sense. And the Chiefs' offense, it's Patrick Mahomes, right? The Bills' offensive line has really, really impressed me. So maybe at the end of the day, if the Bills' offensive line on the road can dominate the stellar Hall of Fame bound Chris Jones and the underrated George Karlaftis, and I don't know any of their other edge rushers, whatever the case is, if that offensive line for the Bills can win, maybe they can win the game.
I didn't hear a distinct prediction there. I'm gonna go ahead and start that off. Then I'm gonna say the Bills win this one. I
Yeah.
don't see
My
if
heart tells
there's
me Bills,
one
and I'm going to
player.
stick to it. So
Not only does my heart, my brain tells me Bills. I don't see the Chiefs' luck. We talk about the buzzsaw. The buzzsaw is the NFL referees, and at some point there might be a performance that is dominant enough. And there's a famous NFL clip, or I'm sorry, NBA clip, where Kevin Garnett was talking about how it's game 7 or it's game 6. So we need to win by 20 so that we can win by 2. And that's what I think the Bills need to do moving forward against the Chiefs. I think the Bills need to win by 20 to win by 2. So I think that this will be a unignorable victory by the Bills. I don't think that there's enough talent on the Chiefs to win. And I think the NFL doesn't allow a three-peat to the extent that we all think that it's trying to forge. So, like everybody thinks that the NFL three-peat, that it's just a given and the Chiefs are going to do it. And I think an interesting storyline will be that the Chiefs get to the AFC Championship and lose. The Bills get to the Super Bowl and become a media darling. So
I can't disagree with you, man. But again, I'll go with my heart. I think that Josh Allen could be the best player on the field. I think the matchup, it'll boil down to that offensive line. Because if they lose and they lose the running game with Cook and then they can't throw the ball because they aren't respecting the run, that's when it could really start to snowball. But my heart tells me Josh Allen gets his shot at a Super Bowl. I love that comment from Derek Benkert. That joke is almost as funny as me saying to Oakland Raiders fans, whenever they would chat shit to me, I would say, Oakland didn't want the Raiders, thinking emoji. What makes you think Ben Johnson does, laughing emoji? But I love that. That's even better. He says, sorry, Detroit, don't be upset. He just wanted his kids to have clean water. That's great. That's great.
what a way to end it.
Derek Benkert, hats off to you, sir.
Derek Benkert, great job. So our official Super Bowl prediction is the Washington Commanders versus the Buffalo Bills.
As the more educated, as the more seasoned viewers of the channel are telling us, this would be a Super Bowl matchup of 1991. So hopefully the Bills can get one this time.
That would be ideal for me in terms of my hopes. And in 2 weeks, we get to watch a really, really good Super Bowl where both teams, whoever wins, I'll be pretty happy. So, Carl, any final thoughts? Or I think we're good to wrap it up.
If the Bills make it to the Super Bowl and Khalil Shakir has another performance like he did, he won't be an unsung hero. He will be a bona fide wide receiver one. And if Khalil Shakir blocks and allows Dalvin Cook, I don't even know James Cook? It's James Cook, right?
James Cook.
Good block. James Cook goes all the way for a touchdown, catches 2 touchdowns. I don't know if he still returns punts and kicks. Maybe he will. I could see dark horse Khalil Shakir winning your Super Bowl MVP. That would be awesome.
That would be sick. Otherwise, the NFL season's coming to a wrap, so these shows are getting a little bit shorter with the news cycle getting a little bit shorter. So, Carl, I had a great show.
I'll cap it off.
Well.
I'll end it with a quote from Ben Johnson today. Ben Johnson said, "This is the place we always wanted to be." That's where I want it to be on Tuesday. It was right here on the NFL Ski Show. Again, we're simulcasting to 2 channels, the Bearski Film channel and the Thy and Spy channel. If you guys are not subscribed to either channel, please consider subscribing to the other. If not, that's okay. But we appreciate your time nonetheless.
Thank you to everybody who's watching as well. And yeah, we'll see you next week, possibly for the Super Bowl preview. So, Carl,
Have a
thanks
good
for
2
letting
weeks
us
to
show,
cook
man.
up for that one. Absolutely, man.
Absolutely. See you guys next time.
Take it easy.